Have you ever heard of the term depth? We need depth in our golf swing. What on earth does depth mean? I'm going to explain that in this video right now. So before I explain exactly what depth is, let me hit 3 shots for you. And all I'm going to change is depth to hit these golf shots. And then I'm going to explain exactly what it is. So if I want to hit a fade, I need what I'd call less depth. Now, if I want to hit a draw, I need to have more depth. And if I want to hit it straight, well, I've just got to be really, really good at golf. So that looked pretty easy, right? All I changed was my depth. Now let's get into what exactly depth in the golf swing is. Depth is, as us coaches explain it, the relationship between where my arms are in the backswing and, more importantly, where the butt of the golf club is in relationship to my trail foot. Now what that means is this: if someone had, let's say, no depth or a lack of depth, okay, someone like a Justin Thomas wouldn't have a lot of depth. A Brooks Koepka wouldn't have a lot of depth. They have a butt of the golf club which is pointing a lot more at the toe line. So when I get to the top of my golf swing, you're going to see that that butt of the golf club is pointing more. If I draw that straight line down from the butt end of the golf club, it's pointing more towards my toe line. So that would be considered not a lot of depth. And if you're a slicer or a fader of the golf ball, you would typically have less depth than someone who draws the ball. So what is more depth? Well, someone like Rory McIlroy would have a lot of depth, whereby he would have the butt of the golf club pointing more at his trail heel at the top of the golf swing. So if you draw a line from the butt of the golf club down, you'll see that it's tracking basically right into my right heel at this moment in time. And then obviously you have players who are somewhere in between, like a Tiger Woods. Now, the best players in the world actually can change the amount of depth they have at the top of the swing for the type of shot they want to hit. So as you saw me hit, I hit a fade, no depth. I hit a draw, I added a little bit more depth, and then I hit something that I tried to hit as straight as possible, where I was trying to find something in between. So the other thing about depth is we need to include how our body rotates. So a really simple way of thinking about this is how much can we rotate both our lower and our upper body. So if I was to place this club across my shoulders here, and I would be, let's say I want more depth. So I'm a slicer of the golf ball and I want more depth in my golf swing. Well, I would want my right hip and right shoulder, or my upper body, to really feel like it's rotating around the corner. I need more hip turn, I need more upper body turn. And what this is going to do is this is going to naturally give me a little bit more depth at the top of my swing. What this does is this makes it so much easier for me to get this golf club to move from the inside and swing more from in to out. And that's how I would change my ball flight when I need to hook it around trees. I would add depth to my swing. Now the other player would be someone who hooks it too much, let's say. They would need less depth. So we would get into that position again and we would try not to turn as much. Little bit of turn, but not as much. So now when I go to grab this golf club and stretch my arms out, you're going to see that I've got a lot less depth, which then makes it a lot easier to get that golf club to move from a more out to in position as I come into the golf swing, or a much more neutral position. And then of course, finally, if you're looking to be someone in between, you want to just have an adequate amount of turn. You don't want too much. You don't want not enough. You want somewhere in between, so that when you go to grab this golf club and you stretch those arms out, you see that that butt of the golf club is more towards the middle of my feet, as opposed to either the heels or the toes. And this obviously makes it, fairly easy to bring down nice and in line, and then as we turn into the golf ball, we can hit it with a pretty neutral club path. So now that you're aware of that, what we're going to do is we're going to hit those 3 shots again. So what we're going to do is we're going to start off with that fade. Okay, so all I'm trying to do is not turn as much and get my arms potentially just a little bit higher. This makes it a lot easier to cut across the golf ball. So if you're a hooker of the golf ball, this might be something you want to try. So I'm going to get into my setup position, and I'm just going to feel like I don't turn as much and I get my arms a little bit higher. So I'm practicing not having as much depth. And this should lend itself towards a more of a cut motion. Or a shank, one of the two. But as you can see there, that was a pretty rubbish golf shot, but it's not uncommon that players with little depth actually hit that shot. And that's the whole point of this video. It's to teach you about depth. You might need way more depth. If that's a shot that you commonly get, then yeah, maybe adding some depth is good. But hey, if I was stuck behind trees and I needed a big left to right golf shot to get myself out of trouble, guess what? I know how to play it, and I can go and hit my on-purpose shank, as we call it. So the next one, let's go with a draw or even a hook. So if someone wanted to hook the golf ball, or let's say I was someone who keeps hitting that on the range, right? We're throwing clubs around and we just can't keep hitting, we can't stop hitting that one. What we're going to do is we're going to increase the amount of body rotation I get. My left arm's going to go across my chest more, which is going to give me more depth. And I'm going to be able to feel like this golf club can move more from the inside, produce a lot more of a draw flight, or might even just be a straight one for you because you have to feel so much depth to get it to neutral. So let's give that a go. Set up into my setup position, and I'm going to feel like I'm turning my body much more, which gets my club much more around me, and it makes it a lot easier to get that swing to move from in to out. So I think that was a little bit straight, but I kind of thinned it a little bit. I'm not going to redo it, but you can see how that was a lot straighter than the previous one. Now, one thing to note as well, notice the divot patterns I'm getting. Okay, the more out to in motion is potentially going to give a more deeper divot, more downward angle of attack, low point moving more forwards. The draw type feel, or the more depth, is going to create less of a divot because I'm coming more from the inside. It's a lot more of a shallower golf swing. So just keep that in mind. Now the last one, I'm going to attempt to hit it straight. One of the hardest shots in golf. But what we'll do is we're just going to feel, we had next to no depth in the first one, hit a shank, more depth in the next, hit a kind of thin shot there. So let's just give this a go. I'm going to try and hit this dead straight, try and find just a balance of something in between. Sorry to interrupt the programming here, but this is like my 8th take trying to hit a straight shot. As you can see there was a swing where I had very little depth, created that cut shot. More depth created a little bit more of a draw shape, and then after about 143 attempts, I managed to finally get a straight shot. As you can see, I've got so much more divot there than I had after the draw shot. So it doesn't always go to plan, but at least I have that awareness of exactly how to create more depth, how to create less depth, how to maybe shape some shots on the golf course. But it's a really good way to learn how to move that golf ball in different directions for when you're in those scenarios when you need to maybe get out of trouble. So hopefully that all makes sense to you. What is depth? At the end of the day, depth is either more body rotation, which helps get this lead arm more across the chest, butt of the golf club feeling like it's more down the heel line, and less depth is less body rotation, arms a little bit higher, where the butt of the golf club is more on the toe line. Hopefully you enjoyed that. If that helps, let me know. See you next time.